My name is Amy. I'm the Director of Recruiting here at WorldWide HealthStaff, and we are joined today with some excellent visitors from Lehigh Valley Health Network. We would like to welcome all of the attendees. This webinar is directed towards new grads who are in the U.S. and need sponsorship. We're excited to learn more about the program that Lehigh Valley Health Network has for new grads. I'd like to introduce the team here from the network. We have Megan Andrews, who is an RN on the Regional Heart Unit at one of the locations in the network. We also have Kelly Cunningham, who is an RN interviewer with HR, and also Joe Napolitano, who is a Vice President for Lehigh Valley Health Network. I'd like to turn it over to the team from the network. And while they're talking, for those of you who are attending, please feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat. We are going to take questions from the chat at the end, and we would love to hear from you and the questions that you have. We would also love to know where you are, like where are you going to school and what year are you? We'd love to have that information as well. So let me turn it over to the folks from Lehigh Valley.
So thank you very much, Amy. Appreciate it. So I am Joe Napolitano. I am one of the VPs at Lehigh Valley Health Network. Thank you very, very much for joining us this afternoon. Well, at this afternoon, our time here, for those that may not be in the same time zone. So a little bit about LVHN. We are actually have to change this slide. We are now 10 hospital campuses in the northeastern portion of Pennsylvania. We have 4 institutes, 1 children's hospital, about 300 plus practices. You see community clinics, health centers, express care centers, children's express, rehab, testing. We are over 20,000 employees with 1,600 employed physicians, 850 APCs, about 3,700 plus registered nurses, with over 72,000 acute admissions and 235,000 ED visits. And I do know this slide gets updated after our fiscal year, so we have exceeded all of those numbers at this time. In terms of, just to give you some visuals as to where we are, a complete network, right? So we do have 10 hospital campuses across, our largest being Cedar Crest, then Muhlenberg, 17th Street being one of our, actually our historical was the Allentown Hospital. We actually just opened 3 new facilities in the last year. So Lehigh Valley Hecktown Oaks, you see that in the 3rd row on the right, was opened last July 1st, just celebrated its year anniversary. And then we opened up Lehigh Carbon and Lehigh Valley Health Network Dixon City in the last 2 to 3 months. And those have, all 3 of those sites have exploded and have exceeded their projections in terms of visits. So the demand for services from LVHN continues to increase. I was asked to talk a little bit about LVHN, and then I'll talk a little bit about the nurse residency program specifically, which, by the way, is incredibly near and dear to my heart. I've been with the network since March of 2020. And for those that may remember, that is when COVID hit. I actually joined the network officially the first day before we took our first COVID positive patient. I've had a relationship with the network since 1987 when I came postgraduate school and worked for what was the predecessor called of the organization. And then I worked in the Valley since 2000, specifically with the health philanthropy that had specific affiliations with LVHN. So my ties to LVHN go, like I said, back to 1987. The nurse residency program specifically, for those that may know some of the history or may not. So in 2010, October 10th, 2010, was the Future in Nursing report. One of the recommendations that came out of that report was that hospitals have nurse residency programs. LVHN jumped on that and in 2012 opened its nurse residency program. It eventually became the first nurse residency program in PA to receive accreditation with distinction from ANCC. It is a year-long development course that incorporates curriculum from VISI and AACN, which is a kind of branded, very evidence-based curriculum, and provides newly licensed nurses with a foundation for leadership and critical thinking. There are some expectations, obviously, small groups with other nurse residents and experienced nurse facilitator attending the educational seminars, with peer support group and guidance sessions. And it developed, and one of the key components is development of a clinical evidence-based performance project. So we've taken some of those projects. Those are critical for us. It's not just a kind of nice to do. We have leveraged some of those endeavors across the network, everything from skin-to-skin contact, improvements in preventing pressure injuries, improvements in diabetes education. So we've actually taken some of those nurse residency programs, and our colleagues, our nurse resident colleagues, obviously, have also been fortunate in order to present material, both not only through publication, but also through public engagements at various conferences across the U.S. and beyond. The eligibility to apply is simple. It's just all our newly licensed nurses who have graduated from an accredited nursing program within the last 12 months and are starting their professional nursing role. We do have one of our colleagues today on the line, Megan, who I know is in the midst of the residency and can speak to some of that. I know when the questions come up as we go through that. We've had about 3,000 plus nurse residents come through the program since 2012. So we just celebrated 10 years worth of that. We do know that has really helped our new colleagues transition to practice. They tell us about this. We are also, Pennsylvania happens to be one of 3 states in the United States that has a statewide consortium with Vizient program, and LVHN was instrumental in really facilitating that kind of statewide effort. It is seen as a model program. In our prior magnet designation, we received an exemplar for the nurse residency program. I should also state that LVHN was the first full service facility in Pennsylvania to receive magnet designation. We are a 5-time magnet designated network, and we are one of 20. That makes us one of 23 hospitals in the world that has received magnet designation 5 times. And like I said, we are the first nurse residency program to receive accreditation with distinction in Pennsylvania. We just received our 2nd accreditation for that. We are seen as a premier kind of nurse residency program, and the benefits of participating in a nurse residency program include that mentoring, the peer support, the evidence-based project, and a transition to practice and facilitating transition to practice. So we're invested in our colleagues' professional development. So what's it like to live in the Lehigh Valley? And for those that may not be familiar with the Lehigh Valley, we are about, I love this little map here. I tell people all the time, if you draw a line directly, west of New York City, about 90 to 100 miles, and then draw a line directly north of Philadelphia, 60 to 70 miles, where those 2 lines intersect, it's really the Lehigh Valley. It's the heart of the Lehigh Valley. We are very, very fortunate. We have 3 principal cities, Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton, located within what we consider the Lehigh Valley. We are central to both Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and New York. Living in the Valley has a lot of opportunities for it. You can live in one of the 3 cities or immediately in the more suburban or even rural sections. you can be in some significantly rural areas in a very short period of time, depending on where you live, 10, 15 minutes, which also includes the benefits of any type of outdoor activities. And you'll see more and hear more about those. So including our arts, entertainment, colleges and universities, there are 7 major colleges and universities in our area. We have lots of places for outdoor hikes, trails, bikes. We have several large annual music, cultural events where thousands of people come to. The Music Fest probably being one of the best well-known ones. Week-long event coming up in August, and actually LVHN provides support to that in terms of we volunteer for that, as well as many of our other festival events. You see our Crayola experience. We have we're very, very happy that we have our hockey, our baseball. We have our Iron Pigs and our outdoor. The upper left-hand picture is of Steel Stacks. It is the former Bethlehem Steel site, which has been transformed into a multi-purpose venue while retaining the historical essence of the Steel Stacks. Downtown Allentown, revitalization, probably over $1 billion in an economic reinvestment. That's a shot of the PPL Center and surrounding area. We're going to show a video shortly about living in downtown Allentown, which has had a tremendous revitalization, as well as Bethlehem and Easton have also gone through some economic revitalization. We happen to be focusing on our Allentown experience. Some photos of some of the downtown venues, and once the video, we'll go into some more detail on that. And with that, I'm gonna pause here and give both Megan and Kelly the opportunity to jump in before we see the video.
Yeah, I can speak to the residency. I like how you said that it gives you support, and I just wanted to agree with that. With Lehigh Valley Hospital's residency program, I never felt thrown to the wolves as a nurse. Like, I felt really supported, and throughout every month that I go through residency and that I am a nurse, I feel like I learn more and more. Like, I never felt like, oh, here, start working and you'll figure it out. Because you hear a lot as a new nurse, you learn as you go. And I can appreciate that. But the residency programs really gave us like foundations to learn as you grow.
Yeah, I second Megan's comments on everything. So a little background on me: even though I'm in human resources, I am a registered nurse. I came to the network back in 2015 as a graduate nurse. So I did go through the whole graduate nurse residency, everything like that. I think it very much so helped shape me to be not only the nurse, but the, working class person that I am today. It helped build that professionalism, helped with the support and the resources that we have. In my role, I still talk with graduate nurses and experienced nurses. I love to talk about Lehigh Valley and all the support and opportunities that you have in a network as large as ours with a community hospital feel. So, I think that staying within the network for as long as, Megan has, I know that Megan's passed, she's been with the network even before she was a new nurse, and deciding to stay with us, as well as me, just, my choices in staying throughout the network for 7 years, just changing in different roles. There's so many different opportunities for you within a network like ours. So, I think that nurse residency just puts you a step above in that professional development and support within the network itself.
Well, obviously, you two happen to know my inside track. Obviously, it's very, very near and dear to my heart, the nurse residency program, and I'm just, ecstatic to hear that it continues in that trend in terms of as we have our colleagues transition to practice, professional practice, and the support that they're given, because I do think those are formative times, and I hear that, and I know if we pulled any one of our colleagues that are either in our nurse residency program now or have gone through, the support that they're given, because that is our expectation. With that, CJ, if you could maybe play our video.
I'd like to introduce you to a special place. A place with rich heritage, strong work ethic, and an unstoppable momentum. Where breaking ground and cutting ribbons is the new normal. Welcome to downtown Allentown, Pennsylvania. Let me show you around. Notice our skyline, the arena, people on the move, connecting. You'll recognize some big names: Merrill Lynch, ADP, Morgan Stanley, a Marriott Renaissance Hotel. You can almost feel the vibrancy. A city alive with murals, green space, dog parks. This place is humming. Honestly, most people are amazed when they look around. They expected something more like that sad old Billy Joel song. We know what you may be thinking. Allentown is so yesterday. Decades of decline, glory days gone. But look again, because Allentown is back. With $1 billion invested over the past few years, downtown Allentown has arrived. We're the third largest and fastest growing city in Pennsylvania. Actually, we've got one of the largest revitalizations in the whole country. Multiple Class A office towers, more than a dozen new upscale apartment communities, one-of-a-kind retail, events, and a thriving restaurant and bar scene. You could say we're making quite the comeback. And it's not just downtown that's been energized. Local developers and investors from New York City have ambitious plans for our waterfront too. We don't mean to brag, but it's no wonder the revitalization won a global award for excellence. Something big is happening here. Something exceptional. Start with our first-class office space. Stylish, bright, flexible, collaborative. For, how people want to work today. Factor in the low cost of doing business, and it's no surprise we're attracting Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, and cutting-edge small businesses. Check out all of these new apartments. They're just cool, with some of the best design and amenities anywhere. Amenities like co-working space, a pool, a bouldering wall. Feel like meeting new people, getting outdoors after work? Allentown's got you covered. With rooftop happy hours, movies in the park, or trivia at a food hall. See a Rembrandt at the Art Museum. Take in jazz at Symphony Hall, or visit the award-winning Science Center, all just steps from your office or apartment. And then there's the PPL Center, a new 10,000-seat arena right in the heart of the city. Pro hockey, Disney on Ice, major musical acts. There's always something exciting going on downtown. Did we mention Allentown is nationally known for its park system? The city's covered in green space. Not only that, you can go skiing, kayaking, hiking, and biking, all within minutes. Not a bad quality of life for the price. See, Allentown is in a unique position of being a small, big city, meaning we've got the arts, entertainment, diversity, talent, and professional vibe of a major metropolis, but also the affordability, flexibility, and community of a smaller scale place. A place where you can walk to work, launch a startup, or close a deal on the sidewalk. A place where opening that restaurant or shop of your dreams is actually possible. With a quick commute to New York and Philly, an educated workforce, and the spirit and resilience of a city on the rise, Allentown might be exactly the location you've been looking for. Innovative, thriving, livable, and future ready. A city without limits. Come see for yourself. You might stay, and we'd love to have you.
So with that, I'm sorry, that's back to you, Amy, right?
Yeah, I think so. So thank y'all for sharing that information. Like, don't we all, I think Joe said this earlier, don't we all want to go live in Allentown now? Like, what a great, that looks fantastic. And I think, like Joe said, I just want to mention this again. The Lehigh Valley Health Network locations, they are in and around Allentown, but some of them are a little bit further out, not directly in Allentown. Is that right?
That's correct. So we have our 10 facilities are located throughout. We have one in the city of Allentown proper. That happens to be that's the Allentown Valley Health Network, 17th Street. Our largest campus is just outside. That's our LVHN Cedar Crest, Muhlenberg over the river in Bethlehem. We have Hecktown Oaks in Easton. We have facility in Pocono, up in Hazleton, in Schuylkill County, Carbon, Dixon City, Tillman Street. I'm trying to think. I have to go through them in my head in a certain order, else I mix them up. And so, yeah, so we're located throughout, the Lehigh Valley region, with both. We focus today on Allentown. We could have shown you the economic redevelopment in Bethlehem, more of a historic feel to it. Started by Moravian in 1734. Easton, much more of a, because of some of its college and universities right there, different feel to that city. So, positives throughout, but living in the Valley is extraordinary. Whether you're here, say, as by yourself, or you're here, looking with ideas of being with, raising a family. It's a great place, and it's a wonderful place. I personally have been here, both when I was by myself and raising a family. So I've had those two experiences.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. A couple of things I for some questions that came in the chat, I just want to mention. So This webinar is intended for new grads who are in the U.S. right now, graduating from local U.S. colleges and universities that are looking for sponsorship and need a nurse job. I do want to mention, though, that Lehigh Valley Health Network also does hire international nurses who are not currently in the U.S. And you are welcome to apply for both opportunities. Today, and maybe I'll say this. So for both opportunities, there's some really great incentives that the network is offering.
Yes.
And quite honestly, some of the best that I've seen for international nurses. And so if you're interested in, if you're not currently in the U.S., but you have passed the NCLEX and you are eligible to be a USRN, please feel free to apply. We'd love for a recruiter to talk to you about the details of that package. Today, I just wanted to mention that for new grads, the network is offering, and I think this is really special, is offering $5,000 in relocation and a $5,000 welcome sign-on bonus for new graduates that need sponsorship, in addition to covering the cost for their sponsorship. So if you don't live, if you're not right now in Pennsylvania and you would need relocation assistance to get there, you would be able to get that once you started working for the network. So that would be provided, which is, quite honestly, there's not a lot of places that do that for international students. So this is a very interesting opportunity to come to work for an organization that already has a fantastic residency program. So, so that's a really, that's a really great opportunity. So again, if you're not in the U.S., let me go to this slide. You can either chat with somebody live now. We have recruiters, people on our recruiting team live that you could chat to, or please feel free to go to our website and apply, or send us an email application, and we would be very happy to get you connected to a recruiter and help you interview for Lehigh Valley Health Network. And there are interviews coming up really soon. So now let's go back to the new grads. But just so if you're here and you're excited about what you're hearing, we can help you too. I don't want to leave anybody out. So Joe, you mentioned about the location. So close to Philly, close to New York, maybe the video did. Can you talk a little bit about the cost of living in the areas where there are locations in the network compared to living in living in Center City, Philly, or in New York City?
It is completely different. By background, I am a native New Yorker. And I will tell you, I choose to live in the Lehigh Valley for a variety of reasons. and have done so obviously at several points in my professional career. Like I said, the cost of living is just so dramatically different, and as well as the access and ability. I mean, if you if you want to go kayaking, you can do that in the afternoon. Like you can come home and, after work, go that, or go for a significant bike ride or a hike or a walk. You don't have to, drive, a half hour, an hour to do such a thing. Living in the Lehigh Valley, the cost of living is dramatically less. Some of those apartments that you saw, especially as we consider the relocation and whatnot, those are easily within reach. Those are in a New York or Philadelphia market. That's a $4,000 to $5,000 a month rental unit. In Philadelphia, in Allentown, that's probably it's maybe a third of that, if that. I mean, it's dramatically different, and that's living, by the way, in a brand new apartment complex in Center City, Allentown, which is a premier location. There are other obviously residential opportunities, whether that's renting a home, buying a home. Buying a home in the Lehigh Valley is also within reason. I don't know if Kelly or Megan want to jump in on any of that as well, but in terms of cost of living, and that also trickles down to whether it's gas prices or food prices, et cetera. But cost of living in the Lehigh Valley is very, very, very reasonable, especially if you compare them to any of the major metropolitan cities like Philadelphia or New York or Washington, D.C. or something. So.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree as well. Yeah, just recently bought a home in December, so housing market for I think the entire, I would assume, world. I know our country in particular is just wild with how the housing market is, but comparatively to New York City and bigger cities like that Joe mentioned, it's well within the norm. And I think much more reasonable than the larger cities outside of the Lehigh Valley area. So. Yeah. And as he said, there's such a great switch from inner city and Allentown to neighborhoods. Like I'm in a very lovely neighborhood with a bunch of families, and there's parks and schools nearby and places to go, things to do, from hiking and biking and walking trails all the way into, different breweries, wineries, restaurants, entertainment. How could you forget those, Joe? No.
I know. You hit it. Yeah, you hit it. I mean, we're because we're so blessed with the whole, we don't think about it, I think, as farm to table, but, in other places they have to think about it as farm to table. Like I have a cornfield that I can, is probably like less than half a mile from my house. And yet I have an Allentown address. So it's really kind of a unique location. We have colleagues that, own farms, whether they're horse farms or livestock farms or agricultural. I mean, it's just, and I'm always fascinated when some of our Philadelphia or New York restaurants, because they can claim it's within 100 miles, so it's still farm to table for them. With their products coming from the valley. So.
Yeah, I think it's
and
nice.
Just for people who are like a single, like myself, I'm a single mom. I rent in the Lehigh Valley, and I'm an RN. I can comfortably afford my apartment off of my salary. I'm the only income in my household.
Wow.
Great point, Megan. Great point. Yeah.
One other thing I'd like to just ask about briefly is, I think especially when you come to a new country, a new place, one of the things you worry about is safety.
Absolutely. Sure.
There's a lot of familiarity with like some big cities that sometimes are in movies or, you hear about in the news. So can you talk a little bit about safety in these areas, maybe even compared to living in, some of the big cities, DC, Philly, New York?
So, as I said, I mean, I happen to be a native New Yorker, and so my sense of safety has been built in from a very early age, and I think that there are in any major city in the world safety considerations. I think that Allentown has actually become safer in more recent years. You saw the kind of in the video, at least. I don't know if some of the changes that they made. There's both that being out on the street, as you saw, and about walking around relatively, safe. Now, I do have to say, you have to be in any city. I think about it that you're always safe. You always have to be conscious of, are you out on the street at 3 a.m. And what are you doing out on the street at 3 a.m. But in terms of commuting back and forth, I've lived in cities where I've had to, my car's been broken into numerous times. That's not happened in Allentown. I can say that if that's of any personal experience.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I think that's helpful. And then I think maybe just a couple more things, and then we'll probably bring this to a close. I see somebody mentioned how long is this contract, and the current contract here is 36 months. I think something that's really important is that this is a direct hire opportunity. So as soon as you go to work for the network, you are an official employee of the network, and you are eligible for all of the same benefits and all of those great things. And then when the 36 months is over, you can stay. You can stay and be an employee as long as you like, and you don't have to go somewhere else.
We want you to stay.
Yeah.
And by the way, and you mentioned the benefits. We have absolutely, and I'm going to have to go to Kelly on this, but we have a wonderful benefits package. I mean, we have tuition reimbursement. We have, our coverage is extensive. It's just, and we're constantly, one of the things I will tell you that we're trialing out this year, only because it just happened in the last couple of, with our new colleagues coming on, we've invested we've partnering with a third party vendor, for NCLEX support, right? So some tutoring services, some crash courses. We know that, there's a sense of, I'm a nurse. I know what it was. I remember what it was like to study. Now, yes, I was back in the paper days where I had to open the book and do the practice exams and stuff. But, we know that there's a sense of anxiety that's associated with taking and passing the NCLEX. And at the same time, you're on the job and you're trying to become a new colleague and orient, and you're learning what it's like to transition to practice, and you still have to be studying for the NCLEX. Well, we want to take some of that anxiety away. We want to, if we can provide some support through some tutoring or through some crash courses with individuals that's what they do for their business. And if you want to take advantage of that, please feel free. So we're actually trying that with a vendor this year. And we're going to, if successful, we plan on continuing that.
That's awesome. So then maybe from each of you as we go to close this down, is there something that you would maybe final thoughts, maybe two things, maybe favorite thing about working for the network, and then one thing that you would want any international nurse, either in the U.S. or outside of the U.S., to know about working at the network?
I'll go last.
I'll go first. So my favorite thing about working at the network is the family environment. When I graduated nursing school, yes, I was an employee of Lehigh Valley, but I did interview elsewhere because why not? And I kept coming back to the family feeling of Lehigh Valley, and that's really what made me want to stay. I started with the network in 2014 as a receptionist. I had 2 babies with the network, and if it wasn't for Lehigh Valley's tuition reimbursement that I took advantage of every single semester, I don't know that I would have been able to become a nurse as soon as I did. So I love the family aspect of Lehigh Valley.
That's awesome.
All right, good. So I think it's my turn. So what I love most about Lehigh Valley, I think I touched on it a little bit, is, being in a large network, being in a very well-known network, but also having that, as Megan said, having that family feel, having a very close-knit community feel. Even in our largest hospital at Cedar Crest, which, has well over 1,000 beds, I think, at this point. It's a very large hospital campus, but it's amazing how many people you actually know as you're walking through the halls, going to your unit, greeting everybody. It feels like everybody knows everybody, even in a network as large as ours, with, I believe we're at well over or close to 20,000 colleagues in our network. So, as large as that is, it still feels very much like a home area. And I think the biggest reason I stayed as well is just the opportunities within the network itself. I don't have to, make a huge change, have to look at relocating or going to a different network, having to switch everything up. I can stay within a network like ours and just transition to different roles. Within my 7 years, this is my third role that I've had, and hopefully I have it for a very, very long time. But, just the ability to be able to transition in a network, not only move laterally within the network, but also move up. We've seen, like Megan starting as a receptionist or going into being like a nurse's aide, and moving up, getting a degree, being a nurse, and then being a manager of a floor, then maybe a director of a floor, then maybe the VP or administrator. You can move up the chain, and they do like to look within their own network and promote those that they feel are great fits for there. So lots and lots of different opportunities within the Lehigh Valley. And I would say a message to those that aren't, in the area or coming to the country itself. I think our area in particular provides a lot of support. Again, it has like a different kind of feel from the neighborhood aspect to the inner city aspect. So no matter where you go, I feel like you'll be able to find a home within the Lehigh Valley.
So I'm actually going to do my favorite thing is clearly my colleagues and the sense of you've heard it from both of my colleagues on the call today. That sense of family and the sense of just belonging and being part of something, but very, very tangible in terms of our close-knitness. No more evidence than the last 2 years, and what's gone on in healthcare across the U.S. and across the world, but with those colleagues really comes a sense of can-do, time and time again, just rising to the occasion. And I am incredibly proud to have worked with and continue to work with just a group of rock stars. And I'm our front line. And when I say our team, I mean my front line. And they're rock stars. What has, with a global pandemic, and I think we're on our way to 6 at this point, and what they have done and continue to do. So I have to say it's my colleagues. From an international perspective, I would say we're welcoming and diverse. We were very, very conscious of our diversity aspects and try to continue to improve that. I'm actually part of the network-wide council on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we, there's a place for everyone. In the Allentown School District, the last data that was provided, there's something like 36 languages spoken in the Allentown School District alone. That's one school district in the Valley. I just don't have those numbers for the other sites, for the other school districts. You got some sense of that from some of the from the video and some of the feel within the Valley. I think there's a place for everyone, and it's not only my sense, but a sense from the entire organization that we are welcoming. We cherish and relish our diversity. And in closing, I just say, we look forward to the opportunity of you potentially joining the team. We welcome you to consider it. We know you have options, but it's a great place. I happened to ask Megan to join us today, but I have to say we could probably walk on any facility, any unit, and Not that there's another Megan, because there's not, but just ask our colleagues what it's like to be here and why they want to be here and why they stay. It's a great place, and we hope you consider joining us. We have a wonderful package for you to consider, and that's just on the front end. And then, as we said, our ongoing benefits. So thank you very, very, very much for your time today. I am available for questions. I know they're recording this. Amy, I know you're going to handle the from a recruitment stance, those questions. But if there's anything that we can do outside of that, any additional questions, be happy to speak with anyone. So thank you.